Our study is looking at the affordability of rental housing across Canada, and I've done some of the research looking particularly at Vancouver. And what we do is to look at how much it would cost your typical worker working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, so full-time, full year, to be able to afford a one-bedroom or two-bedroom apartment in different neighborhoods of the city. So what we find is that for a one-bedroom, typically you'd need a wage of about $27 per hour in order to make it affordable. That is paying no more than 30% of your income in rent, and going out to about $36 per hour for a typical two-bedroom. That's a wage that's out of scope for a lot of individuals. So it means they have to work longer hours, or they need to live in smaller accommodations or pile in with roommates. The other part is that they may need to move further away from the central city to be able to afford housing. So the further away you get from the downtown core, the more affordable the housing is, but then you're faced with higher time and financial costs of commuting and transportation. So the high cost of housing in Vancouver and low wages, for example, minimum wages, mean that a lot of workers need to move further away from the central city and therefore have longer commutes, potentially higher costs on the other side in terms of needing to afford a car to be able to get around where they're going. One of the things we find is that part of the problem with rental housing is that we haven't been building purpose-built rental housing across Canada for a few decades. We're starting to creep back into that a little bit with the BC government. The City of Vancouver has been trying to get more dedicated rental housing built, but essentially we had a generation where we were building a lot of condos, some of which get rented out, but basically at rates that are much higher than regular people can afford. So we'd like to see the federal and provincial governments get back into the game of building dedicated, affordable housing. The real barrier here is the upfront cost, but once you have it built, then you have a stream of rental income that lasts, several decades into the future, and typically those kind of projects pay for themselves, after 20 to 30 years.